Hello and welcome to this quick screen sharing presentation about WordPress theme development. Recently I decided to build my own custom theme for WordPress, and this is a base theme which we're calling Clay, and it comes with a plugin as well that is also called Clay, and we're basically building a framework for our custom development on our website. So this is what it looks like so far. This is running on my local machine, and as you can see, it's still a work in progress, but it's starting to come together. I wish I could show you what our website looked like before, but I can tell you that we had a theme, a premium theme from Theme Forest. Excuse me, that's just a truck rolling by. I'm here at my homestead, and I'm pretty close to the main road there. So if I could show you what it looked like before, it was a decent looking theme, but what really frustrated me was just how difficult it was to customize everything. So I want to talk about how sometimes it is better to have your own custom site. I can say that what you see on the screen right now is already close to being as good or better than what we had, because most of the features of these premium themes that you find on Theme Forest and really anywhere, they have a million features that you don't necessarily use. Here's an example of the best-selling theme out there, which is called Avada. And you may have seen or heard of this one, and it is quite impressive. I mean, if you look just at the elements like this here, you can see that it's got a million different things. Look at all the different features it has, right? It's absolutely incredible how rich in features it is. But realistically, you probably won't use, most of these. As I click around, they look nice, but one of the things you'll find is that when you go to put them on your website and actually use them, if you don't have the same content, it might not be so impressive. And with things like a header, they offer different header options, but how many headers are you going to have on your website? Probably just one. Same with sliders. They've got 5 different sliders, but you'll probably only use one of them. Chances are, if you have the Avada theme, you might use, let's say, 10% of the features, and that would be really incredible if you actually use 10%. Most sites would probably use far less, like 5%, or maybe even only 1%, because there's at least at least 1,000 features here that you would never use. So there is the performance issue of whether or not you want all that code in your website. There's the the potential for conflicts with things that you're building for your website. So definitely Avada theme. I have this up here actually because as I'm working, I'm looking at the Avada theme and copying some of their styles, because they've got some really good styles. Like, for example, how they lay out these boxes here, and they have the little flip that happens as you hover over. They've got calls to action like this. Lots of great things to to learn from. I like the footer here, recent work, some links. Lots of good praise here for Avada. But getting back to our site, it might not be that much to look at now, but I'll give you an example. We have in the customize here, we are putting all of our settings into customize, which is the right way to do it now. You'll still see that most themes have their own control panel, but we're using the customize settings panel. And we've got here the branding tab. That's where you can put a logo for the header and the footer. We have some footer settings. That's these headers right here. Okay, so as we go, we're building it out. I mean, because it's a custom theme, we don't necessarily have to put settings in, because it's mostly for our own use. But we may release it at some point as a theme, and we want to also just gain some practice with using the customize panel, which was a really interesting thing to learn how to do. We're going to put all the colors in here under the colors panel, which once we do that, our color scheme is gold and black for the most part, and occasionally some silver. But eventually you'll be able to go in here and just pick a different color and have everything switch over. So that's the customize panel that we're using. Oh, and we've got social links here, some sharing links. We've got some styling here for the categories over in the right hand panel. I'm pretty happy with how it's coming together, but what I like most, if I show you the code, how it looks here, I've got a million tabs open in my editor. Let me just close them all down. So this is the Clay theme that you can see here, and the structure is that we've got some CSS files. I like to break the CSS down. We might merge it together later. We've got fonts, we've got images, source. The source are basically PHP classes that do certain things like rendering. So this is Clay Render, and this allows us to keep our templates a lot more lightweight because a lot of the logic and the handling is done in here. So we'll be expanding that. Clay menu registers nav menu locations. We've got our templates broken down into post, elements, and look how lightweight it is. I mean, you can see that right now everything's running through index.php, which is the main template file. So there will be more files, of course. There'll be here. I'm going to add WooCommerce right now because we're going to want to customize the WooCommerce templates in here and give it WooCommerce support for the sale of our plugins. If you look at the functions.php, let's see how many lines we've got. So far, we're at under 50 lines. So what I like about it as a developer is that if I want to add something, like right now, I've got the problem of missing features, right? So I don't have certain features that I would want. If I go to add a certain widget over here, it probably won't look very good, and I'll have to style it. Okay, so features are missing. If we go in and take a look at, I don't have WooCommerce on this local site, but if we go to the live site and take a look at how our store is doing, and yes, this is live. This is not. I'm not recommending this as a way to do development, but we don't have a lot of traffic right now, so it is already live. We go in and look at WordPress plugins, and you can see that what's missing here is that we don't have customized templates for the WooCommerce store, and so this is not being wrapped in the grid that we're using, which is a custom grid, by the way, based on Bootstrap. But again, just taking what we need rather than including a whole library. So instead of including Bootstrap, which we could have done, instead we have our own version of it. But we've got to wrap things like this in the grid, otherwise they fall over to the side of the site. Okay, so this is the challenge you face, and I don't know what's going on over here. This looks like it's like an automatic sidebar. I think that's what it is, automatic sidebar, and we've got to replace that with a real sidebar, the one that we use throughout the rest of the site. So when you build a theme from scratch, you have the problem of not having the features that you need, right? But I've got to say that personally, I prefer to be in that situation than the opposite situation, which is I've got something like Avada, and it's got a million features. There's definitely no shortage, but of course, there's going to be things that you don't like, that you want to change. And when you go to change it, you go and you look at where do you make those changes, and you could spend hours trying to find where to change something, and so that can be really time consuming, and it's just not as much fun as a developer. It's a lot more fun to build up than to try to kind of debug and make changes to something that already exists. So that's my preference whenever possible. I feel the same way usually about plugins. And it's worth pointing out how long this took. This is basically the result. What we have so far in this clay theme is basically a day and a half. And it was a long day. I was really inspired, and I really wanted to get something that looked, that had a header and a footer and was, starting to look like a finished theme. So I probably put in about 12 hours one day, and then the next day about 6 hours. So it's probably getting close to 20 hours of development into it. Now I can tell you with the previous theme we had that I put in probably 50 hours or 100 hours in trying to customize it and make changes to it. And it still did not make me happy. It still wasn't that great because there was just too much of a gap between, what it provided and what we wanted. For example, the portfolio never looked very good, even though it had some kind of cool loading and, it had some neat features, but when we tried to change it, it was almost impossible to change. I mean, we were editing JavaScript files here and templates over there, and we were, scouring through the documentation. We had to make support tickets. Like, it was just this really laborious process that burned up lots of time. So, what can you build in 50 hours or 100 hours? You can build a lot if you're starting from scratch. And, a lot of you really don't have to start from a blank. I mean, you can start with a framework for theme development, for example. I did not do that here. Again, I actually prefer not to do that. But you can go and copy. I just like to copy basic templates from things like 2017. That's what I'll usually do. Now, you could even start with something like Avada, and you could pull stuff out of Avada. You might like a certain style sheet that they've got, so you copy some of their style sheet. Or you might look at some of the things they've included. Like, for example, I included Milne. I haven't used it much, but it's an alternative to Font Awesome. I included that, and I discovered that because I was looking at Avada and wondering how do they do what you see here, which is these little check marks, and I wondered where were they getting those, and it turned out, I thought it might be Font Awesome, but it was actually Milne. And then I went ahead and integrated Milne, which took, maybe 45 minutes or something like that to get it all set up and get it looking nice. The cool thing when you create something yourself is that you are in a much better position to support it, and you can always add to it. And I feel like it's sort of like killing two birds with one stone. It's very efficient because in this case, I only was trying to style this widget over here, the categories widget. Which is now styled to be very similar to what they have in Avada. And even though I was focused on that area, I ended up integrating Milne, and Milne can be used in lots of different places. Like later I might put a shopping cart icon up here, and I'll be able to use an icon for a shopping cart to make a nice link there. And then, there's probably a dozen other areas where I can use that Milne icon set. Okay, so I hope you found this interesting and valuable if you're trying to make the decision of whether or not to build your own base theme or to use a child theme with a premium theme like Avada. If you're making that decision, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I just want to say don't be scared off like I was previously. Don't be scared off by the idea that it's too much work. Like I say, for me, this was 20 hours, and sure, I'm going to put a lot more into it, but it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. And I would guarantee you, when it gets to 100 hours of development time, it's going to be vastly better and more suited to my website than anything I could have gotten off the shelf, even a great theme like Avada. Okay, thanks a lot for watching this video, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.